Fellow risk takers, this is your worst. Podcast host Andrew Stotz from A Stotz Academy. And today we have a special guest. And his name is Wes Schaeffer. Wes, are you ready to rejoin the mission?
Did you call yourself the worst podcast host?
You know, they said they
I,
said
I love
when
it.
they said when you got to define your niche that nobody else can beat you at.
I thought I was the worst, but maybe I'm happy to lose the title.
Yes, yes. Yeah, trust me, I'm the worst. But the good news is when I started podcasting many years ago, I thought when I made a mistake, I always said to the audience, I told you I was the worst.
What do you
What do you
expect?
expect? So I just want to welcome you back on. You were episode 280. That was back in October or November of 2020 in the heat of the COVID madness. And so
Yes.
for those listeners that want to hear Wes's story, just go to episode 280 on myworstinvestmentever.com. But let me just reintroduce you to the audience for those people that haven't followed you. And so Wes is the business fixer. He sees the message you want to convey, but can't find the words and gives them to you because if you don't toot your own horn, there is no music. He's a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu and the president of his HOA. So mow your damn lawn and pay attention to what this AF veteran, father of seven and grandfather of three, has to say. I think you're actually younger than me, and you've already got three grandchildren. My goodness,
Three and
he's
a half.
three. He's written a couple of books, spoken around the world, published over 700 podcasts, and was once duct taped to a bar in Korea, which we may or may not talk about. So tell us a little bit about what the heck is going on with you in your life.
Raising kids, playing with grandkids, measuring lawns, all the important things in life.
Exactly, exactly, exactly.
It
So
was actually it was during COVID. The previous board, I'd never even been on the board, and the previous board locked us all down during COVID and closed the pool, and a bunch of us got mad and said open the pool, and they said no. I said okay, we'll run for the board, and we won. And we opened the pool.
the COVID madness. I mean, you're just gonna
uh,
look back. People are gonna look back 20 years from now and they're gonna say, why did everybody just comply with that?
mm, my goodness, I
But
know.
that's another story. So tell us
Yes,
about
it
what's
is.
going on. I know you've got, I listen to your podcasts and I know that you've got a lot of different things that you do, but main thing is obviously helping people market and sell themselves, their products. Tell us about what you're working on recently.
Yeah, the core of my offering has never changed. I started in 2006 helping people sell. 2008, I ran across the marketing automation space and how you could streamline things and serve more people and keep your costs down. Uh, and but that was ever since then. It's like technology keeps rearing its ugly head, right? And people become too dependent on it, really, and it can become overwhelming because every time you look up, at first there was a new CRM, and then there was a new email tool, and then a new e-commerce tool, and new affiliate tracking, and now it's all AI, and there's scraping and cold email, and we just get caught up with all of the tools, but it's still garbage in, garbage out. You see these people saying, get my prompts, so you can educate, train, shape your algorithm, and all that is still very true. Um, and at its core, we need to remember that there's humans on the other end of the screen.
Mm.
Um, I always make the joke 15 years ago, virtual assistants were all the rage. So your VA would write an email, then my VA would read it and delete it. And, the only people making money were the VAs. And so it's almost getting like that with AI, right? The AI can send, 100 emails. Now we're going to get AI to scrape it, to screen it, filter it out, summarize it already. I mean, I use Google, G Suite, and it already has an option, summarize the email.
Mm.
So what are you doing to connect with the human being on the other end of the screen? We're starting to forget it. It's like we don't want to be treated like a number. Yet we don't mind buying all these tools and blasting and spraying and praying and as long as they click and buy.
Mm.
So it's like you need to be consistent and congruent, in how you go to market.
So the word I wrote down as you were speaking is connect. So we need to be connecting and making connections. One of the things that I was thinking about as you were speaking is that, I'm a pretty well-educated guy in the area of finance, and I was pretty much guaranteed at a young age that if I could just keep reading, keep studying, keep teaching finance, I would be at the top of the pile by the end of my career. And I would say, I'm there. I got a PhD in finance. I've got my CFA. I've read every book, every research paper that I could get my hands on. And all the time, I felt like I was building a moat. And now all of a sudden, I got all these students like, oh yeah, I summarized everything you did. And a student showed me yesterday. He says, I went to his house, his office, and he said, I used Google Notebook LM. I uploaded all the PDFs that you gave in the course, and I created a whole basically chat bot where I could ask you any question and get an answer and understand it. And I was like, oh, are all these young people now going to take away my moat? I've never been like worried or intimidated, but now I have some questions in my mind. I'm wondering what you think about that.
Well, maybe a little,
Mm.
um, but really, ever since the internet came around, the role of the salesperson changed. Before the internet, salespeople were the keepers of the knowledge. If you wanted to buy a car, you had to go down to the dealership and do battle. And now you have Carfax and online shopping and comparison, and you can negotiate before you get there. You can compare models. I mean, you wouldn't get a car shipped in from across the country, 20 or 30 years ago. You had to buy what was on the lot. Maybe drive across town, maybe drive to another town, maybe. But now you can compare all over the place. And the same thing, looking at software, there's Reddit, there's Quora, there's LinkedIn groups. I mean, people will share information. And so you're no longer the keeper of the knowledge. So now, but people are still confused. In the past, they were confused from lack of knowledge. Now they're confused because there's too much information. So, can you be the trusted advisor to help assuage their fear and give them the confidence that they're making the right decision?
Mm.
That's, you know, now you really do have to be that trusted advisor you always said you were.
So, as I'm taking some notes here, and the first one I mentioned was connect. The other one was information. Like everyone has access. In fact, now it's too much information. I remember when the internet first started, we're like, oh, this is amazing. We get all this information. And then all of a sudden people started subscribing to emails that curated, and then they started paying. I'll pay $9 a month for an email that curates all of this down. But then you also mentioned trust and being that trusted advisor. So connect, information, trust. Is there anything else that comes to your mind?
Well, just to really elaborate on that, we've always heard people buy from people they know, like, and trust. But what happens is it turned everyone into a bunch of uh, professional visitors. They just want to be known and liked. And the reality is, trust is 98% of it. Knowing you is, of course, 1%. Trust, liking you, of course, that helps. But at the end of the day, we'll buy from people we don't really know, someone we just met. We may not even like you. But if I trust you, if I see your data, if I see your work product, if I know you're shooting straight with me, I know it's a good value, it's a good warranty or whatever, I'll buy from you. And so we don't spend enough time building trust. So, I've consolidated a lot of the things that I've done over the years, looking at goal setting and going through different programs myself, fitness
Mm.
training programs and um, financial planning and whatnot. And I haven't seen like a comprehensive program that helps people plot and document and achieve a life cadence, okay, for lack of a better term. Like I said, there's fitness programs, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, whatever. There's 30-day sprints and but how, how do you live your life? Can you and should you schedule time to relax? Should you get up at a certain time every day? Should you schedule self improvement? Uh, should it be a goal? Should it be something that you schedule and track and are focused on? When you look at people that you really admire, in your world of financial, Warren Buffett, he's not a glamorous dude. He literally lives in the same house in Omaha. I mean, I think 50 years, 70 years, something crazy, right? He just does very boring things over and over and over again. And truth be told, the superstars we follow in sports, their regimen is pretty much anyone you look at. There's other than maybe John Daly in golf, right? But he's an anomaly. He
He's
won a
got his
couple of
regiment. He lights up a cigarette, grabs a beer,
grabs a
and
beer,
swings at the
right?
club.
But he's an interesting character. But everyone else get up at the same time, go and putt, go to the range, go shoot their free throws, hit the gym, nutritionist, stretching, sports psychologist. I just heard a thing from Nick Saban, the retired coach of Alabama. Everywhere he's been, he's had two sports psychologists on his teams.
That's amazing.
So he always had access to the greatest physical talent in the nation. And yet physical isn't enough. You need the mental acumen. So are you tracking what you're doing? Are you intentional? So, I came up with a program. It's a free habit tracker, called 12 Weeks to Peak. And then it's a program as well. I work with individuals, small teams, to help them create their cadence. Because you always hear companies, oh, our greatest asset are our people. And they grind them into the ground.
Mm.
So I'm like, okay, we'll prove it. Help them schedule their lives. Exercising, prayer, family time. I have you every day call a friend. We lose touch, and I mean, and life is short.
Yeah.
And don't leave it up to chance. Oh yeah, I should call them. What? No, figure it out. Maybe it's on the drive into work. Maybe it's the drive home from work. Maybe first thing in the morning you can call people on a different time zone. You've got some night owl friends. Okay, call them. But like, stay in touch with people. Be intentional with this, and because you see these horrible things, right? Somebody will commit suicide,
Mm.
especially in the military, and somebody will make an announcement. It's so tragic, and they'll say, "Hey, reach out if you need help. Here's my number. Reach out." Like, why don't you reach out? And so I think people need to be more intentional with
Mm.
everything that they're doing. Social media makes it too easy to just waste our lives away. I call it, we live in the time of pot, porn, and playoff. You know, drugs, pornography, uh, sports. I mean, people are just numbing themselves with these things, and life is passing them by.
Here in Bangkok, they've liberalized, weed to a very extreme point where there's a shop everywhere you go. And I think that many people just equate that like it must be safe or something or the like. And I always think to myself, uh, we have to protect our body, putting anything in it, you can't expect that putting anything in it doesn't have an effect. It's going to have some effect. And I like what Thomas Sowell says, which is there are no solutions, only trade-offs. So I drank a few cups of coffee in the morning to fire up my morning, but that is not creating new energy. It is shifting my afternoon energy to the morning. So if people are smoking weed or, whatever, everything's a trade-off. And so
Yes.
that's, one of the things that I think a lot about. And I think young people and people these days, you can just get sucked into it. Well, since everybody's doing it, it must be okay. And, but
Right.
really there's a cost, there's a consequence of these things.
Yes. Yep.
I noticed that that I like what you say, 12 weeks to peak, stay the course, endure, succeed. So for people that are interested in getting some support, just go to wesschaeffer.com and you'll see it. And I'll have that in the show notes. And, you're talking about faith, family, fitness, finance, and those types of things. I know the concept of scheduling, one of the things that's worked for me over the last couple of years is I knew that I had back pain and some, I had I needed to deal with it. And one of the ways I decided was a good way to do it was yoga. And so every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I do yoga in the morning. Now, luckily in Thailand, there's some great yoga teachers. So I have a couple different ones. And so they come on different days. It's not that expensive. And we do an hour. And I've completely reshaped my body over 2 years, but it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and I got the habit. And then I decided this year it's more I want to blend in lifting weights. So there's a gym right nearby. So
Nice.
before yoga, I go and I do that. And then I thought, well, I do need to do some cardio. And so I have been doing that, but I mainly walk at the park because I live right next to the park. So I thought, just do 20 minutes of lifting, you know, focus. I don't need to break any records right now at my age, but I need to not get injured at my age. So just do 20 minutes of lifting, push, pull, whatever, and then go to the park, one lap around, get back, do the yoga, do that 3 days a week, and then take Saturday and Sunday off. And but I'm scheduling it. That's what I heard about,
Yeah.
what you were saying and the idea of scheduling. But I'm not scheduling my calls to the people who matter to me. And I think that that's something, that you're talking about that's valuable.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you got to be intentional, or life just, it'll just pass by. And, I used to think, oh, if I'm too scheduled, like it takes away my creativity and whatever. And it's like, the reality is when you're taking care of the important things and they're handled, it frees up your mind. So yeah, in the beginning it'll be tough because like learning anything new, but it's not meant to. I want you to have a lot of white space on your calendar. I don't want it
Well,
totally
schedule
filled.
that.
Yeah, I mean, just like airlines, right? People always wonder, oh, well, the flight's 30 minutes late, and they still arrive on time, because they build cushions in there. You can't be totally perfect, or you'll one little glitch and you'll never recover.
Mm-hmm.
So you need some downtime. And it's like, I'm a little envious of you living overseas because we we take things to too much of an extreme in the US.
Yeah.
This hustle culture and grind. And I think the younger generations, we take everything to an extreme. The younger generations in a way don't want to work. They just want life experiences. And so you got to find the balance. You got to produce, but then you got to relax.
Yeah.
And so um life, I saw something that talking about it in Europe, comparing and contrasting Europe and the US. And it's like Americans live to work and Europeans work to live. And so we got to find that happy medium
I was speak
balance.
I was speaking to a group of graduating seniors at university nearby, and I said, look, what I can just tell you is that when I got out of university, I really only wanted two things. Number one, I wanted a job that I enjoyed, that I liked. And I wanted to do it with people that I enjoyed being with. And that's all I was at. I wasn't asking to be, Elon Musk, or I wasn't asking to be super rich or anything like that. Well, the first couple of jobs kind of fit some of those, maybe one fit, it was what I liked, but maybe not with the persons I liked or the other way around. So I just kept quitting until boom, I found the job that I love, which is to be an analyst. And and then I set up my own business. So I do it with the people I love to do it with. So, that's one thing that I really try to tell them is that, you know, you can build a happy life and great work, and if you're sitting in a bad job that you're not happy or with bad people, then you you got to get up and move.
Yeah,
Um,
that's it.
I since you're the man in the sales front, I do need to get some help, and I think that if I ask you for some help on something, it's going to benefit the audience. So maybe I'll try something here and ask for your advice. So I came to Thailand in 1992.
Wow.
I became an analyst in the stock market in 1993, and I built a career as a very successful analyst for 20 years. And then I set up my own business about roughly 10 years ago. So let's say 20 years as an analyst, 10 years with my own finance business. But in 1995, my best friend from Ohio, where I grew up, where we both grew up, came to Thailand and we agreed to set up a coffee roasting factory, which we did. And basically, as a financial analyst, I was the best advisor for him. But what I found at some point was we weren't making as much profit as we should have been making. And we actually went into COVID in kind of a weak position profit wise. And we had kind of lost control of our accounting and finance. And our accounting manager kind of collapsed in, but it was like over a 3-year period. So we are trying
Yeah.
to work with her, but eventually it just kind of all fell apart. And so it's like the rear view mirror was black. We couldn't see anything happening in the past. We could kind of just manage what was going on. And then COVID hit and we weren't prepared. And then we lost a lot of money because we were supplying coffee shops, hotels, and restaurants, and they were all pretty much closed.
Yeah.
So our revenue was down 80% at the
Mm,
worst of the COVID time.
mm.
It took everything we had to survive them and come back. And what I told myself is, I'm never going to let us have low profitability again. And so I started on a mission 4 years ago to create a course, and I call it the Profit Boot Camp. And I put my company through it and I started offering it to other companies. And the tagline is very simple: I help family businesses double profits in 12 months. So that's my kind of origin story of where it came from. My target market is family businesses, mid-size. I can't help startups, and large companies can spend millions doing whatever they want. But for this group, I can help them double profits. I've been there. I know the pain of losing and I know the feeling of winning. And we are winning big time now. And this is our 30th year anniversary of our coffee business. So
Nice.
I'm just curious, like, how would you advise me to think about my sales pitch and, the way that I tell a story, what's missing, what's good? How would you advise me on that? And I want people to listen, to the story that I've told. I've thought a lot about how to tell that story. I still think it's a bit clunky and it's a little bit long, but it gets the message across that I've been there and I can help you get out. But what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, it's a good story. Um, and it you do need to figure out um like a lot of people suffered during COVID. And so a lot of people it's almost like those that survived have the battle scars. They're different, right? It's going through something. It's different than just a recession. right? Just a business cycle. So, and some are still recovering.
Yep.
Some are still bitter, right? And so you've, I like how you've niched it down, which is good. You're clear on the size of business that you can help. Um, so other than just like brute force surviving through COVID, um, what's the claim to fame? What separates you? What differentiates this program from others and from other consultants?
Yeah, and I don't think I've weaved that into the story.
Right.
And I think that's what I've got to, but I'll just briefly explain that this is the back story. I've read between 3,000 and 5,000 books in my life. And I take notes when I read. And I basically went on Amazon back when COVID happened, and I went on Amazon and Goodreads. I downloaded every book. I downloaded basically the 500 best business books of all time. Then I'm a financial analyst, so I know how to analyze. So I created a scoring system based upon the reviews and the ratings and the number of comments that people have written on both Goodreads and Amazon. I set up a weighting and an algorithm basically, and then I created a composite score for every book. Then I ranked them from number one to number 500 to say number one is the best book of all time. Now, you gotta do this based upon time too, because Good to Great was written now 30 years ago. And how do I score this book relative to a new one that's just come out? So I resolved all that, and I ended up with about 40 books that I would say are the best business books of all time. I classified them into 11 modules, and basically 40 books. Each module basically has 4 to 5 books. And then I wrote 1 page cheat sheets for each book. I read every single one of them. And then I created a PowerPoint on that book related to the cheat sheet. So you can just look at the cheat sheet, follow, and then in the PowerPoint, I tell all my stories and I create worksheets. How do we do this? Okay, this is one of the best books out there, The 1 Page Marketing Plan by Alan Dibb, one of my former guests on the podcast. So I made a great template and put my own business in there and then demonstrated. And I say, now you got to do this. And that's basically the backstory of how I created the curriculum. Each book is between 30 minutes and 60-minute video. That's it. You don't have to take any notes. You don't have to do anything. Watch it, think about it, and then you got an assignment. And that is the worksheet that I'm going to give you about that book. How are you going to apply this in your business? So that's the backstory related to the curriculum.
So my initial gut feel, entrepreneurs. So when people are struggling, right, they either have more money than time or more time than money. And the people you want are the people that have more money than time. They will pay for answers. Okay. And people in general, they'll pay more money for an aspirin than for a vitamin.
Yep.
It's just how they are, you know. And so can the fact you have a PhD um, carries a lot of weight.
Mm.
Okay. And so don't downplay that. Um, people will, have you read The Goal?
The
Um,
goal from by Goldthwait, or
yes.
yep, yep.
Is it
That's
Goldthwait? Yeah.
that's the goal, meaning the constraint theory of constraints,
Yeah, where
or
he tells it
not
kind of
Brian
as a
Tracy's.
novel
Yeah, yeah,
where he's working in a factory and
yep, yep.
yeah. Uh, you know, such a great book. Um, And the way the consultant made them, now they didn't have time, or they did have money, right? But the consultant in the story, didn't charge them. He said, you can pay me later. But he had to help them come to their own conclusions. And that's how we all are. We can't tell anybody anything.
Mm.
We have to guide them. We have to help them come to a new understanding. And so, you know, most entrepreneurs, they don't want homework. The way I explain what I do is like, now that you're exercising, right? Years ago when I was in high school, my high school buddy, he had a gym in his garage, so we could work out at any time. And my sister had come to town to visit. It was during the summer, and I was like, well, let's go work out. And I was playing football, played in college, and so we were always lifting. And I was bench pressing. I was a big, strong kid, and I told my sister, I need you to spot me. And she says, I can't lift that weight. And I said, I don't need you to lift this weight. I'm going to lift this weight 6, 7, 8 times, hopefully 9. Maybe I'll need your help at the very end. And like a good spotter, like if I'm bench pressing 225 pounds, a good spotter, if they keep me moving, that sticking point may literally only be 5 pounds.
Yeah, that's amazing. Great story.
Right? Like literally 2 fingers, get in
Yeah.
there, one hand. I'm 17 years old. My sister's 14 years old. I'm like, worst case, put your hands and kind of pull 20 pounds of help. So we get to a sticking point, and if we can just get past that sticking point, we're good. And so in your world, with your knowledge, with your wisdom, you can't do it for them. There's not enough of you
Yeah.
to go around, and they don't have enough money to pay you to do it all anyway.
Yeah.
So you want to be a spotter. You're a business spotter. It's like, look, I've been in business. I've analyzed. I've studied. I've compiled. I've narrowed it down. In the 8 hours it would take you to read this book and do the in-depth analysis, in 8 minutes on one call, I can give you the applied wisdom until you get stuck again and call me back.
So there's a couple of things I'm thinking about that. The first one is because I've read so many books, I really can just hone in on what matters in this book. Yeah, like, okay, you would spend 7 or 10 hours reading this thing, but I've already done it for you, first of all. But really, this is the thing, and if you can implement this in your business, it's going to make a difference. But I love the idea that the spotter concept, the way you explain that, is a great example for everybody listening and watching about how to teach something through a story. And I'm never going to forget that story.
Yeah, good.
And what you taught was that sometimes all you need is a tiny bit of help to do a
Yeah,
huge thing.
absolutely. And in your case, I might downplay the books.
Yep.
Um, you're a PhD, so I assume you're analytical.
Yeah.
I assume you've stayed current. So what you have to do, in sales, we have to meet our prospects where they are.
Mm.
Okay. And so it's good and bad that you're a PhD. Some people may see it like that you're unapproachable. They may think that you've lived in the ivory tower and don't know what it's like to be hands-on, meeting payroll, running a warehouse. So share the story that you do own a business, that you have a coffee business, that you do retail and commercial business and have for 30 years. And so they're coming to you for applied, proven, functional wisdom of 30 years of hands-on and 30 years of detailed analysis of the best business books out there. I've been sick for 9 days, so
Yeah.
I fought off the cough mostly. Thank goodness for this mute button.
Yes, exactly. Well, you use it. Um, there's one thing I was thinking about the bench press story, and that is maybe we could flip it. It's me that's doing the hard work. All you got to do as a business owner is the 5% to take it to here it all is on a platter in this particular area. This is what you need to do. So one of the great books, for instance, is Checklist Manifesto. And this book is, of course, a great book. And it talks about how could we apply checklists in our business, in our lives. And everybody that reads it, gets it. And so, and all of my clients so far, they read it like, oh my God. And then it's just like, all right, so here's a little format for a checklist. Where is one place in your business that you could implement a checklist? Just one. I don't want you to implement 5 checklists, just one. And who is the person that's going to do that implementation? And so one of my clients, they said, well, just before the delivery truck leaves the factory, we're going to have a checklist. Does he have the parts? Does he have the tools? Does he have everything so that when he arrives at the customer's location to do the delivery and the installation, can he complete that job and get back? And if he messes that up by just one wrench or one part, the whole thing's delayed for maybe half a day or another day. And it's expensive and everybody's unhappy. And so this is an example of, how to apply something. And so that's where I'm trying to get to. And so in that sense, in some ways you could say I'm the guy that's doing the bench with lifting the bench, bench pressing, and you're just there taking it. So maybe another story would help to illustrate that. I'm just trying to think about that.
Well, you've done the heavy lifting insofar as plowing through the books and discerning and distilling the pertinent information.
Mm.
There, that they can't get around that. They're the ones doing the heavy lifting, and you're there. But we may not go to the gym because we don't have a spotter. Or we may just put on the weight that we know we can lift safely, so we don't, we stymie our growth because we don't have that spotter, because we don't have that 5% assistance. So we don't lift to failure. And so we minimize our growth. So it's like you're there, you're that safety net that helps them go bigger, faster.
Okay. Now, one other thing you mentioned, which I think is relevant, is business. I'm going to quote you: business owners don't want to do homework. And I agree that, I mean, and if it could work out where you just go hire McKinsey and let them do all the work and come to you and go, okay, here's how you fix your business. But we know 50% of the time those projects never get implemented because they didn't originate from the owners, and they're, even though they spend a lot of money on it. And so what I'm trying to do is basically be someone behind the scenes driving them to make the decisions, to face the challenges that they have, to make the decision they have to make, implement the things. Plus, every single month, I benchmark their business using my benchmarking system on finance against global peers. And when I do that, I can identify their exact weakness in their finances of their business. And then I meet with them once a month to say, our objective is doubling profits in 12 months. So where are we? Here's where we were last month. You've been focusing on this. Did you move the needle? No, you didn't move the needle. Is this still the right place to focus? Well, I can definitively tell you yes, because I'm giving a measure in this, what I call world-class benchmarking scorecard, which I developed many, many years ago as an analyst when I looked at companies. There's 2 things that matter in a company. Number 1, profitability needs to be high. If you're selling something and you're only making $1 for every 100 that you're selling, it's not a great business. And the second thing is you have to have growth, or else, you can have a 20% net profit margin, but no growth. because you priced yourself out of the market. So there is competing forces. And a great company to look at is Hermes, the bag company, because they're massively high yield, high return, high profit margin and strong growth. So they're like the dream. But the point is, then I look at these two and I create a composite score from 1 to 10, and I look at where you are. And if you're a 7, I'm sorry, you're not in good shape. You're below average. And our goal is to get that to a 1. Now, I break that down into many components, but the second thing is, let's say you have a high return, you're getting a high net profit margin, and you're getting growth in your business. So now you pat yourself on the back and say, we're doing really well. But what you find out is that the whole industry is doing well. And then you have to ask yourself, are we performing in line with the industry, or are we outperforming the industry? A good example, I've seen some companies that I've invested in or that I've advised, they tell me we have a bonus. We paid a big bonus this year. Oh, why? Because our profitability was high and our growth was high. Great. And then I look at their profitability and growth and say, it's average compared to 700 global peers. You just rewarded average performance. Now, it's good for you. I understand. It's better than last year for you because you were a 6 or a 7, and now you're a 5. So you're making progress, and you're maybe rewarding that progress. But this is not exceptional. You're not world class. And so this is one of the tools that I use in it. And I didn't tell the story of that, in my origin story either. And maybe that's more valuable than the books. Now, in the origin story, I didn't talk about the books, but I did tell you the backstory on the books. But maybe my world-class benchmarking and the way I'm doing that on a monthly basis should be something that I should build in of how I designed that for my own business, and we applied it.
Well, but do people want to be world class? They may not think they can. Um, they may just want to sleep better at night. They just want some predictability. I mean, like I said, people pay more money for an aspirin than a vitamin. They may be having a heart attack. So that's where you've got to be clear. Are you a turnaround king? Are you a king maker?
So okay, so
uh,
let's address that. So basically, I'm looking at mid-sized businesses. So, and I don't accept companies that are losing, and there's a turnaround, because that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to help an ongoing business get better. But I like what you said. I wrote down many people don't want to be world class, and I can say, what's the goal? And I know for
right.
my clients, it's legacy, it's their family, their kids. In fact,
Yep.
last night I was on Instagram and I saw an announcement of a Western Pennsylvanian architectural firm merging with a West Virginian architectural and design firm to become one of the larger architectural firms in, let's say, Eastern US, or maybe even all of the US. Why was that an interesting story? Because the architectural firm from Pittsburgh in Western Pennsylvania was founded by my great grandfather in 1898.
Wow.
My grandfather ran it, and then he sold it at one point, and then the others took it over. Other people took it over, but still, the origin story and the legacy is still a legacy.
Sure.
And so my family clients want legacy. And as I tell them, it doesn't have to be that your son or daughter runs the business. If there's a
Right.
better operator, that's fine. But the point is, and you don't even have to own the business. If your children sold it and got cash out of it,
Right.
and the legacy is still there of what you've created. So legacy is something that may be more important than being, I don't need to be financially world class. Well, then let's just be above average and enjoy that.
Yeah. Um, something along the lines, maybe not future proof, but um, yeah, legacy may be what resonates,
Mhm. Yeah.
you know, but I don't think world class will,
Yeah. That's
uh,
interesting.
because, and again, depending on the size of the company you're dealing with. I mean, if you're dealing with the larger companies in the SMB space, they may be thinking that.
Let's
You
say,
know, if you're
20 to 40, 20 to $100 million in revenue is what my target market
okay.
is.
And I mean, my personal experience, I don't know that companies that size use that kind of phrase, world class.
Yep.
In my mind, that's like a Fortune 1000, maybe. Um, so, but if it's still family owned and operated, if the founder is still running things, then they've got some pride of ownership. They've got frustration with how things are going. Uh, I think everything we're seeing in politics, like with Elon taking over Twitter and uh, how he's doing things with the Doge. I think there may be an efficiency kind of theme you could run with.
Mm.
Say,
Yep.
are you bloated? Are you lean and mean? Are you paying for things you shouldn't? It's so coming
Yep.
up with something like that. It's like that because it does feel like a new era politically, um, globally. We're past COVID. AI is here. It feels like kind of like how things felt like in 1995.
Mm.
Windows 95 came out. The internet was like, okay, the internet's here and it's a thing. It's not a maybe. And so it feels like there's potential. There's a lot of uncertainty, but I think there's hope.
Mm.
Um, Maybe there's some angst, right? Like, how is this all going to shape out? But so playing on that, it's like, are you ready, for this next industrial age, information age, AI age, whatever we're going to call it? But there's a pivot happening right now.
Mm.
And so, you know, is it time for some spring cleaning in your business? Get light, get lean, get focused, and take advantage of what's coming and, get
Yeah, the
light,
big
get lean, build the legacy. Get
the, the
light, get lean, leave a legacy.
the big challenge that companies here in Asia are facing is that China is a huge competitor now. And I think for countries like Thailand, over the 10, 20, 30 years ago, you could definitely have a low cost advantage. And if we go back to, the core of strategy as taught by Michael Porter, we talk about being differentiated or being low cost. Well, China has just blocked your strategy in Thailand of being low cost. There's just no way you're going to compete with their cost base. And add on to that, their engineering talent and their drive is pretty impressive. So it's not just low cost cheap, it's low cost quality. And all of a sudden, many family businesses in Thailand, at least, and I know it's happening around Asia a lot, is feeling like, what do we do? And repositioning a company that was a low cost leader to become a brand and a higher value added company, it's not easy. It's the
Yeah.
challenge that they're faced with. Um, I want to just highlight. I mean, this discussion is it. It wasn't my purpose on this call to go through this all, but as I thought about it, just before we started, I thought it's a good example of what you can bring. And so I want to think about the audience for a moment, and what's the best way for them to follow you to get what you have to give, because I think you do have a lot to give, and I really want to make sure that they can get that. So what's the best way? I'll have links in the show notes to everything, but what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Yeah, just click on that on the links, and 12weekstopeak.com will take them to the landing page on my site. I mean, it's easy to remember. It's the number 12. And all my social media is there. I'm active online. Uh, if you reach out, it's me that'll respond. I
Mm,
don't outsource that. So, um, if the 12 weeks to peak, the free tracking sheet, I got a free group on LinkedIn for accountability and helping you. But like I said, if you want some accountability, somebody to nudge you for every day for 12 weeks, I've got some private options, again, for
mm,
individuals and for small teams. and we get into sales cadences and talk tracks and overcoming objections and prospecting. And, I've written books on CRMs. And
Mm,
so I understand the technology side of things, but I always bring the humanity side. So,
mm.
if you need help in that
Excellent.
regard, then go to the site, look around, hit the contact us, and we can talk.
Great. And I just want to go back to the beginning of our conversation when you talked about the importance of connecting. You talked about the importance of, you know, everyone has access to information, but you need to become that trusted advisor. And that brings us to the third point that you mentioned about trust. And I think that those three things are a great reminder for us all. So my last question for you is, what is your number one goal for the next 12 months?
Um, I'm wanting to grow this the 12 weeks to peak. It's I've had it for a couple of years. It was just kind of on the back burner, and it was too. I built out a very detailed spreadsheet that helps track. Because I like you, I'm kind of analytical. So I've revamped the whole thing like literally right now. So it's I'm proud of the new kind of look and feel. It's the 84 days, but then you got your daily tracker, and I've gotten good feedback from folks jumping into it. So I would like 12 weeks to peak to become not necessarily a household name, but recognizable in the next 12 months because it's helping people build that life cadence.
And you take people from around the world?
Oh, for sure. And like I said, it's a free tracker, and the group is free. So you can
Mm.
absolutely be around the world. And yes, coaching wise, right? I mean, it's 6 p.m. right now, what, 9, well, 7 p.m. now. So 10 a.m. for you. And yeah, I've got clients. Last time I pulled my database, I have customers in 29 countries.
In fact, and if you didn't have one in Thailand, you have one now because I just signed up. So, ladies and gentlemen,
Nice.
sign up and I'll see you in there because I listen to you and I appreciate, what you share, whether that's YouTube, whether that's by your podcast. So, keep up that great work. And for those people listening, get what Wes has to offer. And that's a wrap on another great discussion. I want to thank you, Wes, for coming on the show for a second time and sharing, and also coaching me a little bit on what I'm trying to get to. And in fact, that's what you asked in the intake form. What's your biggest challenge? My biggest challenge is scaling up my profit boot camp. And so I look forward to being in there. So any final words from you for the audience?
Just take action.
Boom.
You know, if this speaks to you, then do it. Don't wait. You've got to become a good decision maker. Listen to your little voice. So whether it's this or whatever, working with Andrew, buying another course, whatever, hiring someone, firing someone, listen to your little voice and take decisive action.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is a wrap. This is your worst podcast host, Andrew Stotz, saying, I'll see you on the upside.